What's up? What's up? What's up, people? Back with some boxing. It's been a little minute, but let's go ahead and talk about this big fight coming up today between Oshaquiefoster and Raymond Ford, man. So I'm not gonna go too deep into this fight because I haven't had the time to really break it down the way that I usually do some of the bigger fights like the Spence and Crawford fight and some of Usyk's fights and Inoue's fights, but this one has been on the radar not just for me but for a lot of people because there's a lot of beef, animosity, whatever you want to call it between these two. They have a history, and I haven't gotten too deep into both of their backstories, but what I can say is Ray Ford, he's from Camden. I'm from Camden County myself, out in New Jersey, so we know him from around here, or at least the people that are tapped into boxing. We know about Ray Ford. I remember the fight. I forgot the guy's name, but the last round he was able to get the stoppage and get that win and get his title. So to be a former featherweight world champion and then be right back in the spot where you're not just challenging for a title again at super featherweight this time, but against one of the top dogs at that weight class. I mean, that says a lot about what he's been able to build with an 18 1-1 record. And really, the one loss he had against Ball not that long ago, some say that he won that fight. I think Ball was doing what he wanted to earlier on in the fight. Let's say around rounds 4, 5, and maybe 6. And then Raymond Ford was able to clip him in round 7, I believe, busted his nose up, and then flipped the fight. So, regardless, that dude was a high level opponent that he was able to take the distance and really make a case for himself in that fight, beyond what he did by winning the title and just what he's been able to build at such a young age. He's only 27 years old, and he's a borderline elite fighter. So, I'm very intrigued by this fight because I've seen Oshaquiefoster come up through the ranks over the years. Him, Keyshawn Davis. I'm trying to think of who else. A couple names come to mind, like the Shakors and the Devin Haney's and whatnot. I remember them all making noise around the same time. Not necessarily in the same division, but definitely remember his face. I remember thinking, yo, who is that dude? And whenever you can say, who is that guy, that's a good sign. And here he is now, 32 years old, WBC champion at 130, and looking to defend his belt against a dog. You have two guys that don't like each other. There's been a lot of chatter back and forth, not just during the press conference, but leading up to this. And I'm going to get to that in a second. But you had the press conference that was kind of jabbing back at each other. And really, Raymond Ford is the one who's doing a lot of the instigating, I would say. Oshaki, he's more kind of laid back. He'll meet you where you're at in spots, but in general, he seems more calm, cool, and collected. So I mean, that was interesting. And then Ray Ford shoved him on stage at the press conference. I think it was Thursday, and then at the weigh-in, they both made weight. Both had to face off. Wasn't a whole lot of talking needed to be done there. Oshaki was telling him, I'm going to show you. And Ray Ford, at that point, no words. He's just ready to go. So regardless of what side you're on, both of these dudes are highly confident in themselves. And I think the confidence along with the skills is going to make this a very, very good fight. And Oshaki, I was just looking at a video about his background. Dude went to jail for attempted murder, I believe. And while in jail, I think it might have been during, I forgot what year it was, but he saw Terrence Crawford win his first world title, I believe. And from that point on, he felt as though, wow, if he can do it, I got a lot of the same skills. I need to get my stuff together and get back at it. And from that point on, started taking the steps to get himself back into boxing, and here he is now. So I have a lot of respect for his journey, and from Ray Ford's standpoint, I'm from Camden County. I'm in and out of Camden and Philadelphia, whether it's for work or whether it's just hanging out with people. Camden, it gets grimy. Just like pick any city in the U.S., you can put Camden right there next to that in terms of how grimy it can get, how tough it can be growing up in Camden or just growing up around Camden and the surrounding areas. Some of them. So you could see it in both of their demeanors, and regardless of whether there's some level of, I guess you could say, immaturity. That's up for anybody's interpretation of whether they think Ray Ford is arrogant or whatnot. But that's just, there's certain people where they're talking and yapping, where they're just putting on the front, and then there's certain people where that's just where they hover at temperature wise, and when it's time to get busy, get to it, they're going to step to you. They're not going to be all bark and no bite. They're going to step to you. So I think both of these guys are dogs. Just my surface level breakdown. I think that both guys have a high IQ. I think that Oshaki's IQ is a little bit higher because I think he's a little more polished at this point in his career. You know, Shockey, he's 24-3. Two of those losses came very early in his career, and then the third loss came against Robson Conseical. I can never get his name right. And then he came back in a rematch and got his lick back and then got his title back. So I mean, and Robson Conseical is a very very good fighter, very very good fighter. So I mean that's, I like the adjustments he was able to make in that fight in the rematch. Uh, he had a nice win over Stephen Fulton, and to be fair, Stephen Fulton was coming up in two weight classes to go fight Foster in December of last year. But he completely outclassed him in that fight, and he did what he was supposed to do. And against Abraham Nova, who's a common opponent between Oshaki and Ray Ford, they both got the win over that guy, and you could argue who had the better win over Nova, who's a very, very good fighter. So I think both of their resumes, although they don't have a lot of marquee names on it, I think Oshaki has a little more experience with, just a little bit more experience, especially with Stephen Fulton and Conseichao. So I see this as a fight between a guy who wants to live with his jab, 72-inch reach versus a 69-inch reach for Ray Ford. And Oshaki, he's gonna sit behind that jab, set it up, and then try to come with the two down the pipe. And it's gonna be on Ray Ford as the southpaw going against the orthodox to be able to win that battle of lead foot positioning. The same, well, not same, but I think similarly to when you see other southpaws fighters going against an orthodox fighter, that lead foot positioning is everything. And some of the best orthodox fighters, they have fits against high level southpaws because there's something about being a southpaw where you just get more repetition, you get more of a understanding of how to enter and exit out on different angles against an orthodox fighter, excuse me, as opposed to the other way around. They don't see as many southpaws, so it's just natural, unless you're specifically training to fight a southpaw, that may be an issue for you. That's just a tale as old as time there. But overall, I think Oshaki, although he's not as explosive as Ray Ford, although he can't, I don't think he's as creative as Ray Ford. I think that he's a little more disciplined than Ray because although I think this is a competitive fight, I think that Ray Ford, he can have a propensity to want to walk you down, just want to fight. Like he'll forget about trying to box at times. And that's something that you cannot afford to do against somebody like Oshaquiefoster, because he's going to stick with the game plan and keep looking for weaknesses until he finds one. And especially if he feels as though he can get you riled up leading up to the fight. Although I think that Ray Ford is comfortable in that emotional state of mind that can all change in an instant against somebody who, listen, man, he been in the pen before. He had a rough upbringing, running the streets. I don't know if Ray Ford had a similar background or not, but this guy, Oshaki, turned his life around and kind of saw, like, man, I'm blowing this opportunity. I need to get my mind right. Think he has a little bit more patience. And to me, just as a surface level read, that may be the separating factor in this fight. Oshaki having a little more patience than Ray Ford. And I don't necessarily know how this fight ends. I'm going to say by decision for Oshaquiefoster, but I think that if Ray Ford can keep his mind right, then it's a 55-45 fight in favor for Oshaki for me. But if he comes in there reckless, as Oshaki alluded to, I think that it could be like a 65-35 fight in favor of Oshaki. I think it just comes down to the temperament coming into this fight. Is all that bravado really channeled anger for Raymond Ford, or is that him slipping at the seams? I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. This is just kind of like a brief prediction here. You know, I found a little bit of time after starting a new job as a postdoc, so I've been trying to find some time to do the podcast. But I want to get this video out here and try to get the ball rolling on talking about boxing a little more. Let me know what you guys think about this fight. Who you think is going to win? And then I want to switch over quickly, and this will hold true regardless of the outcome of this fight. Oshaquiefoster has been alluding to the fact that he does not like the current state of boxing with certain boxers, including Ray Ford, Shakur Stevenson, and Hitchens. What's his name? Let me get his name right, man. Richardson Hitchens. You know, all three of those guys, he called them the Avengers, the Super Friends, whatever he called them, saying, like, he don't understand how these guys, they're all friends, they don't want to fight each other. And when he tries to reach out to fight one of these guys, as though this or that or he's talking to other fighters and they're saying, hey, Shakur asked me about your sparring, like, you know, how you looked and whether you look good or whether you look bad, and he's wondering, like, why y'all worried about me, man? Y'all trying to prey on my downfall. Now, this is something that a friend told me about, and I looked at a video a day ago about this, and it's a very interesting take. I'm going to have to really look into this, but just on the surface level, this is something I've been noticing not just in boxing, but in a lot of major sports. You look at basketball, everybody's buddy-buddy. I mean, I'm not saying that these guys were never friends. You know, Larry Bird and Magic Johnson and Michael Jordan, especially when they were on the Dream Team, they'd be drinking beers and playing pool and whatnot. It's not like they hated each other off the court, but on the court, they're not shaking hands once the game starts and picking each other up. No, like, they can go from being really good friends off the court to damn near wanting to fight once the ball's in the air and they're running up and down the court, man. They're not trying to hear all that. So it's like, why do we have to... I get where he's coming from. In boxing, you can be friendly outside the ring, but nobody's best friends. Once you sign up to be a boxer, anybody should be able to get it. I can understand with the Klitschko brothers. They're brothers. I can understand them not wanting to fight each other. The Charlo brothers. They're not going to want to fight each other because they're brothers. But outside of that, do friends really exist in boxing? When it's time to sign a contract or decide who's going to fight. Like, if you're number one in your division and your best friend is number two in your division, are y'all not going to fight because you're best friends? Then why are you even boxing at that point? So I understand where he's coming from there, and I want to know what y'all guys think about Shakur Stevenson, or his comments on Shakur Stevenson and Ray Ford and all them, because from my vantage point, I like all those fighters, but he seems like the most old school out of all of them. He's just like, man, I'm just here to fight. I want to fight the best. I'm not here to make friends. We could be friends after we retire. We can be like Roberto Duran and Sugar Ray Leonard and and Leonard and Hearns, and they can be on a podcast 30 years from now having drinks and laughing and joking. But right now, no. I need the fade with you, man. It's not personal. It's just business. So I think that I understand the mentality. I understand the mentality. I find it hard to reconcile being in this game, the fight game, the hurt business, while still being friends with other boxers to the point that you won't fight them if you're in the same division. So if you're the WBC belt holder and they're the WBA belt holder, what are you guys just going to keep holding your individual belts and or vacate when they try to make you fight? Like what is the deal there? And if somebody's outside of the clique, are they hating because they're calling out that behavior, or are they actually making a good point because said behavior is not indicative of the way a champion's supposed to carry themselves? Like, yeah, you may be friendly on the surface, but under the surface, you're supposed to be a savage, man. You're supposed to be having smoke for everybody. No. Let me know what y'all think about that. And my last thoughts, I kind of want to talk about the Usyk fight he had with Rico, 2 weeks ago now? Very interesting fight. I wasn't going to cover it because I didn't think it was going to be competitive. Boy, was I wrong. I believe former world champion kickboxer, high level kickboxer, regardless of whether he was a champion or not. And he was giving Usyk the business for the majority of that fight. Usyk was 230 or 233, which is the heaviest he's been at heavyweight or in his career period. And then Rico was at 250 plus. He was clearly the taller fighter, the heavier fighter. He walked forward. He didn't give Usyk any space to breathe. And this is just me looking at the highlights. I'm not even looking at the full fight. But just from the highlights, you can see it. They couldn't even. I'm assuming that he was applying so much pressure, and I'm assuming he applied so much pressure that they couldn't even hide it within shortened highlights. And it wasn't until later in the fight where Rico, with all that activity, he started to get a little tired. I noticed in the highlight clip around the 9th or the 10th round, and you could see him starting to lean forward as he was trying to close the distance, and that's not good. And Usyk, although he was weathering the storm, he was still right there, right there. And when the time came, Rico leaned forward, trying to close the gap, off balance, and head down like he was trying to charge at him, like you know how they tell you if you ever play football, keep your head up. Like, let me see your eyes. Don't if you're looking at the ground, it'll smack you on the back of the helmet. Like, yo, look up. Rico charging in recklessly gets clipped with the uppercut that just is a devastating uppercut. And I was surprised he made the count, the 10 count. And then this is the controversial part. If the fight continues and goes into the 12th round, does Usyk stop him, or is Rico able to weather the storm and probably earn a decision victory in that fight? But instead, he beats the 10 count. Usyk jumps back on him after he gets an extended period of rest because the mouthpiece dropped out and they kind of bought it a little bit of time getting the mouthpiece in, and Usyk jumped on him, and with about 1 second left in the fight, the ref steps in to call it off, and as the bell's ringing, he's waving his hand instead of just letting him go to the bell. One of the worst stoppages I've seen in a very long time. And I'm a huge Usyk fan, but why they have to cheat that man? Like you could have let him finish that round. Referee needs to be investigated, but it's not gonna happen. But needs to be investigated. Why would you stop the fight there? Let them in, with all he did throughout the whole fight. Why would you stop it? Why would you not let him just finish the fight? You let me know if you think it's as egregious as Meldrick Taylor getting stopped with what, less than 10 seconds to go against Julio Cesar Chavez Sr. in their first fight. First, I don't know which fight it was, but when they stopped that fight potentially, allegedly early, do you think it is right up there with that transgression? I didn't like that, and I would feel the same way if I was Rico. I would want an apology, and that's what he asked for, and a rematch. He deserves it. He earned it. And if the fight goes on, he might beat Usyk in that fight. Maybe Usyk doesn't stop him, because by that point, unless there's other footage that I did not see in the highlights, he would need a knockout to beat Rico at that point, because it looked like he controlled the fight. It looked like he controlled the fight up until the ninth round. So let me know what you guys think about that, and we're gonna see how this fight between Oshaki and Ray Savage Ford turns out. I'm very very interested about this because could one of them potentially jump into the top 10 with the win in this fight? This is one of those fights. So let me know what y'all think in the comments and talk to y'all in the next one. Peace.